Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Good morning, whatever applies to you as you're tuning in this edition of TWS and Talk. Do like the introduction song here from Led Zeppelin, called Achilles' Last Stand. And why I use that song, you might ask. Well, apparently we have somebody in the WWE with an apparent Achilles injury. Yeah, I mean, apparently John Cena injured his Achilles over the weekend or something while they were in Europe, touring Europe, in a tables match against Ryback. Now, the extent and the reliability of this injury, to me, is up in the air completely. If he was really injured, if it was really a big problem, which, when the Achilles gets injured, that's not something to take lightly. But in the fact that they don't even declare what exactly it is, they just say it's an Achilles injury, just goes to show that there's something shady here. It's too much kayfabe, and quite frankly, I don't like it. And even if something is bothering Cena's Achilles or whatever, if it's really that minor that he can wrestle on it, then there's no point to me in having it a part of the story at all. Because there's guys are banged up all the time. They're hurt, in quotation marks, etc. There's guys wrestling, Kurt Angle, wrestling with a broken frickin' neck, as he'd say. Wrestling with, probably more severe injuries than what Cena has, and they didn't make a big deal about it. I mean, if they did, as a heel or something, sure, but I hate that, I hate this feeling, because I feel like it's just another hoax by WWE, to, kind of pave the way for other people to beat John Cena because he has this injury. And it was the ending, where it became evident to me that this is looking like a hoax. Now, this episode of Raw in general was pretty, crappy. I mean, for lack of a better term. The only good part to me was the Shield. I mean, I look through this edition of Monday Night Raw, and I look back at SmackDown, and it seemed like the only thing WWE had going for this episode of Raw was the Shield. They had an interesting main event closer to SmackDown to kind of, bridge from. Dean Ambrose having a good, decent match with The Undertaker. Surprisingly, they didn't end it in a double disqualification or count or anything. They had Dean Ambrose lose, tap out to the Hell's Gate. But, given that it was a one-on-one match, it wasn't all three members of the Shield, to me it doesn't hurt them in any way. And, of course, after the match, they got, a big attack on The Undertaker, big spear into the barricade in the ring bell area, and, throwing, doing that power bomb on Undertaker through the announce table.
Oh my God!
So, I mean, Shield dishing out the punishment there. And they had they had that to kind of bridge from on this episode of Monday Night Raw. They had a decent segment, towards somewhere in the middle of Raw after the first hour. And they beat up on 3MB. And then eventually they get to the main event match, which ends up being John Cena and in Team Hell No, instead of what was planned as John Cena and Ryback, apparently, which I guess would have been 2-on-3, which seems, I guess numbers wise, it seems a little unfair. Um, Especially with John Cena and Ryback not getting along, but that didn't happen anyways. Um, it's tonight. They had Ryback. I mean, they didn't really have him do anything special. And it's actually amazing me that they have on Raw, they haven't had Ryback wrestle since before WrestleMania. So it's if you think about it, you go back through the past several weeks. That's a little interesting because usually that was all they'd have Ryback do. But they're trying to mix it up with Ryback, have him do different things. Um, and in tonight's case, have him wear different things. I mean, he had, last week he had the skull cap. Now he's got the Harley jacket. I mean, he's got, it's like he's starting to do his own little fashion show or something. And speaking of, fashion shows, tell me about John Cena. I mean, early in the show, I mean, with that segment, I mean, the first hour was very slow to begin with, as far as Raw goes. Began with a throwaway triple threat match that I don't care to remember, and it just makes the World Heavyweight Championship match a little more of a joke. Now that Ricardo Rodriguez wins that stupid match in the beginning, that just seemed like a you know totally obscure way to start the show. Um, and then it went on with this John Cena segment. That I mean, this whole thing with the Make a Wish Foundation. Look, it's before people go and hate on me.
Go ahead, hater.
You know, but the whole Make a Wish thing. That's great that John Cena does that. That's great that he makes people. He fulfills people's wishes and everything with that. But if you're gonna do a segment like that, please do it like before Raw. Or put it up on the WWE website. That's great, because I'm sitting there watching Raw. I want to get into something, and in the first hour, I'm having and throughout most of the show, I'm having a hard time getting into something here. And when you have several notable absences, in this Monday edition of Monday Night Raw. I mean, it just this segment didn't help. Um, it's especially again, it just doesn't fit in with the story exactly. With anything that's going on, what it's like this random like kind of advertisement thing that has nothing to do in the middle of a movie or something like that. I mean, it's nice that they do that. Nice that John Cena is the leading Wish guy and everything. But as you can clearly tell, by the way I talk, I mean that's not what I'm looking for here on Monday Night Raw. Especially in the first 20 minutes, I want something to get into. If I want to look up, if I want to hear about, John Cena's his new wonderful endeavors in that, I'll look him up. That's the way I see it. The fact that they're gonna have a segment like that on Raw, try to get people to yell and cheer and stuff, it just goes to show you that WWE apparently didn't have much planned for tonight. They apparently didn't take much priority in making a good show, and fortunately that seems to happen a little too often, I think. And I mean, you go from here. Of course, John Cena came out with his at this segment. He came out with his. And I was talking about that little fashion show reference earlier. He came out with, with that black shirt that he wore, a few months ago. Now, of course, later on he comes out. He's wearing his white shirt. So it's just like one of these Monday Night Raws. Are they? Why don't they just go ahead and do it? Have different. Have kids come out sporting various, John Cena shirts and I mean, they change his shirts, frequently enough that they might as well just go ahead and one of these days just have a John Cena fashion show at this rate. I mean, it's ridiculous how many, how he comes out in one shirt and later on he's wearing the other one, and I mean, it's ridiculous how many shirts um, one company wants to come up with for a guy, how frequently. But sometimes it seems like they place more priority in that, in products and things that people wear and stuff, than the actual content of the TV, of the TV show itself, of the pay-per-views. So, and it's evident when they put out a show like they put out tonight. Um, now, Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton, I want to say they had a decent match. The only problem is it was booked out of the blue. It seemed like it had no point to it. It seemed like, oh well, we don't know what to do with these guys. Let's just throw them in a match together. It was a decent match, but it seemed like it had no point to it. And again, you had Big Show absent on tonight. I think that hurt the show. Um, you had I thought perhaps Brock Lesnar and Triple H would be there. Maybe neither guy was there. Perhaps in the next week or so before Extreme Rules, they'll have them there, I would think. But they let me down a little there. They say here comes the pain, coming up next. I'm thinking, oh, here we go. Lesnar, Triple H might be there live, and they show us, they show us things that I've already seen, and if I want, things that everybody's already seen, and I'm sure, and things that if you wanted to see again, you could just go pull up a YouTube video of it, Google it. I mean, I don't understand why. Oh, here comes the pain. Let's show. That's great, but we've already seen that stuff, and it just seemed, and as they're showing the stuff, I'm thinking, all right, are you gonna put more filler in this edition of Monday Night Raw? Come on now. So I mean, it's that dropped the ball a little bit there. It's just so much. You had a tug of war segment, which I guess was all right. With Mark Henry. You had you had who I like to call now is Funka Bore Us. Yeah, I mean, and Tensei, whatever they call Sweet Tea Tensei or whatever. Tons of reasons to change the channel, as I like to say. That was a bit of a waste there. But then they had Sheamus come out and do like a actually put up somewhat of a good fight, it seemed. But it's and then Sheamus kind of tricked Mark Henry, let the rope go, let Mark Henry fall back, and then nailed him with a brogue kick. I guess they just it was evident that they didn't have much better to do without Big Show there, in this whole storyline. So, that's whatever. But it was clearly evident that they're missing Big Show there, and they didn't know much of what to do. So they kind of just it seemed like they kind of just threw a couple things together there, and that's what we got. And I mean, other than that, I mean, they had Cesaro lose yet again. Yeah, I mean, come on. This guy is a definite talent, and ever since he lost the U.S. Championship, it seems like he's been making a habit out of losing, and to me, that's a problem. He's a good talent. His wrestling skills are definitely up there, and I think we need to see him, get a better push than what he's getting. That's the bottom line. You had another waste of time segment with Kali and Fandango dancing. More wasting of time here. I mean, Raw wasted so much time tonight it seemed like there was so much fill or so much of a sense that they didn't know what to do. So much just went down the drain, down the toilet to me. Anyhow, other than that brought us to the ending segment. Again, I mean, throughout the night, Ryback was kind of just walking around. They didn't have anything big planned for him, and I mean it's not like that's Ryback's fault or anything. Nothing against Ryback. They just, I guess they just decided, even though on a show that, was really lacking most of the way throughout, they just decided to let, Ryback kind of just walk around, not do much. The only, the only thing they really had him do was at the end walk out and, sporting his new like, leather jacket and his cap, and he's slowly adding things to his his wardrobe here. So yeah, it's a little funny to me, but that's what they decided to do with him. And again, I think it's a fourth straight Monday Night Raw now where Ryback has not wrestled. Interestingly, so perhaps we might not even see him. Perhaps the next 2 weeks he won't wrestle even until Extreme Rules. They might be trying to make Ryback like this, that, kind of special attraction, I guess, for the ring. And but anyhow, tonight's focus was mainly around the Shield, who, as normal, they do their part pretty well. I mean, when you break it down, they were the only good part of Raw, pretty much. They were like the only guys focused on, other than, to a lesser extent, Team Hell No, who was in the main event match. Pretty decent, with John Cena, I guess, but, John Cena was also the other focus. But unfortunately, that was not a great focus, because you got this whole Achilles injury thing, and it's looking stupid to me. It's looking hoaxy-ish, if that's even a word. I don't know. It's looking like a hoax. How about that? It's looking like another one of these WWE, John Cena problem hoaxes. The whole John Cena problem thing. It's looking like that, and to me that's not good at all. Because think about it. If they would have taken out the injury factor in this main event match, let's say, and John Cena was speared, he was speared by Roman Reigns, he was pinned, and they just, oh wow, commentators would be saying, oh wow, the Shield just beat Team Hell No and John Cena. They just pinned John Cena. That would have been nice. But no, what we had instead was, John Cena's AA attempt. Oh, the heel gave out or whatever. The leg gave out. The Achilles. And then John Cena gets pinned, and the leg gave out, and you got this whole stupid excuse thing going on. It seems like WWE's trying to, it seems like if WWE is gonna have John Cena lose to this new talent like the Shield, if they're gonna have him get pinned by this new talent, it's got to be because the leg gave out, he's got an injury, but we're having him, he's got this bad injury that's affecting him, but we're gonna have him wrestle anyways. I mean, come on, that's embarrassing.
I'm embarrassed.
That's absolutely embarrassing. That's a disgrace. And if this goes on to, Extreme Rules, and they use that as an excuse, to me, that's just not the right mentality that WWE needs to present. They need to present that John Cena's can lose clean to other people, just, straight up, to the Shield, to Ryback, whoever. Not this special circumstance where, John Cena had an Achilles injury, so that's why that makes this law. That's what kind of causes this loss. No, how about they gotta strip things down a little bit. They have all this stuff that comes with John Cena. This whole mentality, this whole booking mentality that's continued to, you know, just stick around through all these years. It seems, um, and it hurts the rest of the company. It hurts their mentality with these big, guys. Back in the old days, the good old days, that's not how it was. And nowadays they have so many like, controversial finishes and all this and that, and it's just ridiculous to me. Um, it really, it's really ridiculous to me. It's also ridiculous when Dolph Ziggler's facing an inferior champion earlier in the night, Kofi Kingston, and apparently it looked like he would have lost to the inferior champion that he's supposed to be better than. Since he's the world heavyweight champion, he's supposed to be like a main event guy, and not at this mid card level. Um, they had to have AJ put Ziggler's leg on the ropes for him to stay alive in the match. If that hadn't happened, it looked. I guess I guess we were supposed to think Kofi was supposed to win that, and it's not. It's ridiculous. They're making a habit out of Ziggler cheating too often or getting these cheap wins. That's not good. We don't need these overly cheap heels. Now, when you had a guy like Edge, the ultimate opportunist, that was a different story. They'd find unique ways for him to win every now and then. There wouldn't be every match, it seems. It seems like every match, Dolph Ziggler's got somebody helping him. He's doing something cheap. He wins in a controversial way every time, and that's just not, I don't like that. Just like I didn't like when, let's look at this. I'm about to tie the two things together I was just talking about. I didn't like when Dolph Ziggler was facing John Cena at TLC, and no, they had to have AJ interfere in the match so that John Cena, kind of had an excuse to lose to Dolph Ziggler there, and so that Dolph Ziggler won the match, albeit in a cheap way, in a way by interference. And looking back on that, how they kind of buried Ziggler after there and around there. It just, I look back on stuff like that, and I see it again now, and it's just a huge disappointment. And they should have, if it was if there is some truth to John Cena really having somewhat of an Achilles injury, that's, give him the night off or something. Give him a few months off for that matter. Albeit when they get. Maybe when they have CM Punk back, I don't know. When they have, the bottom line is if they were running this company right, if they had the right mentality for the future, and got out of this whole, droning of this what people consider the John Cena era of WWE, we wouldn't be talking about this problem in the first place. But this mentality continues. It made this show suffer. And it might continue to make the content suffer. It might, if they use this as an excuse, this whole Achilles thing, when he faces Ryback and Ryback beats him, I'll be glad Ryback beats him. But imagine how much of an excuse they'll make out of this whole, John Cena, his leg just gave out against Ryback. So unfortunate. I don't want that. If they're gonna have Ryback win, I want it Ryback just beat John Cena. He just beat the face of the company. He beat the WWE champion. He is the WWE champion. He's now the best. Yada yada yada. I don't want this whole, mostly kayfabe or perhaps all kayfabe injury thing to get in the way. I don't know who would want that to get in the way of what seemed to be a story on the right path. We don't even know what's happening yet. We don't even know if Ryback's going to win yet. That's the thing. But now they throw this element in here, and it's like either Ryback wins, and they, at Extreme Rules, and they make a big deal out of this Achilles thing, oh, John Cena, his leg gave out, kind of like they did against the Shield tonight. Either they do that, or they have Cena pull out this, oh, this, some would call it Super Cena win, and, oh man, he never gave up, and whatnot, and, you know, I, I don't care. I don't want to see this whole like, and they lived happily ever after kind of story. It seems that they like to do that a lot with John Cena. I want it to be a little more legitimate. I want to have a sense of legitimacy. Um, I'm not saying be like UFC, but I'm saying be a little more like more legitimate in how they book matches and how they set things up and how how things happen. I mean, they don't do that in other sports and everything. Like, oh, this team won because this guy was injured. No, you play with. You don't worry about that. You don't worry about who's injured or what's injured or whatever. You go out and you play the best. You work around things. You find ways to win. Um, and you don't then go make excuses for the loser or the losing team or whatever. You break down, what happened. Essentially, you give credit where credit is due to the winner. And I think that's a little more what they need to do here. And it's like they just throw out this excuse with John Cena suffering this apparent injury and then wrestling 2 days, 2, 3, however long, many days it was on Raw. Um, they can't. To me, it's just there was no sense in thinking of this idea in the first place.
I agree.
And if again, if they continue to play it up into Extreme Rules, it could take away from Ryback's first WWE Championship win. If that's what they have him do. I don't want that. Um, that's I want Ryback's first WWE Championship win to if, and I'm not saying Extreme Rules is when it's gonna happen, but whenever it happens, I want it to be legitimate. I want it to be, no excuses on the other side, no apparent injuries or whatever. I want a fair one-on-one match, whatever the stipulations be, with Ryback winning legitimately, winning clean, no disadvantages on either side, or whatever it be. I just want a down and dirty Ryback win, and that's that's the bottom line. That's what the company needs right now. They don't need this whole They do not need to continue this whole John Cena era, where it seems like John Cena is, well, even they say themselves, the face of the company. Well, I continue to say, instead of having one face of the company, why don't you have 8 faces of the company, like the old days? Why do we have to have one face of the company? Why can't we have 8 faces of the company? Because ultimately, that's what in the long run succeeds. That's what the era is going to be fondly remembered of. That's like the Attitude Era. Sure, I mean, maybe The Rock stood out, maybe Stone Cold stood out a little more than the others, but you still had the other talent right there with them, that stood out as well in their own ways. You still had guys like Kurt Angle standing out, etc. This era, I hate to, it's not going to be very fondly remembered, for the hardcore wrestling fan, for the true wrestling fans, because it's, of the way they've made John Cena sort of like the singular, face of the company. And, it seems like this mentality is continuing. Whereas I thought, I hope, and I'll continue to hope that, the Shield and Ryback continue to, become more prominent, that they win cleaner, that they don't have these clean wins like, like the Shield did, or these wins like the Shield did last night, where, oh, it was because John Cena was injured. That's what they're telling us right then and there, as if that's what we're supposed to believe. We're supposed, up, his leg gave out. That's why he lost. Essentially, that's what WWE is kind of telling us, um, indirectly. But again, they gotta. I just think they have to evolve out of this mentality, um, because it seems like in the past few weeks there's been a feeling of new things to come, new wins to come into this company as the Shield, continue to win. As Ryback is being utilized in new, unique ways, is got this heel turn, and he's gonna face John Cena for the WWE Championship. But they got to do it right. They got to have this new talent win right, and they got to do things right, or else, it's gonna take away, and in the long run, that this we're not gonna evolve out of this John Cena centered mentality, and that's what needs to be evolved out of, essentially. And I mean, I guess we'll wait and see. Of course, WWE could certainly benefit from getting other guys, up to speed with this new wave of, this new main event talent that we need. Um, the Shield and Ryback, they're great, but we need more. We need more guys. And I still don't feel as if they're treating Dolph Ziggler as if he's supposed to be one of those guys. That's a problem to me when he's your world heavyweight champion. But when you got him, you know, winning the way he only seems to do, every time he wins, and you see him, facing Jack Swagger and Del Rio, to me, proverbial mid carders. It's not the, it's just not the greatest way to build guys up, and that's what they need to do. They need to do it more evenly, I think, amongst the guys, and just legitimately. Whether or not they start doing that, whether or not they get they get back Wade Barrett and the Miz on Raw, who weren't on this week. Miz hasn't been on for a few weeks. Maybe he's doing something else. I don't know, with his movie promotions or whatever. But they have talent. They need to start using it correctly, and that's the bottom line. Um, and when John Cena is like a catalyst for, kind of taking this talent down, or not letting them, sprout the way that they really can, it's a shame. And hopefully WWE puts a stop to that mentality. So I guess we'll wait and see what they do next week. But this week, it's safe to say it was a pretty disappointing week, of Raw. That is, I mean, last week SmackDown, again, you had an interesting closer with The Undertaker, obviously, and The Shield. But I mean, I look at this week, and the only thing I saw was The Shield standing out, and WWE trying to make, John Cena, even though he's goofing around in his match and everything, and did this Make-A-Wish Foundation thing, and he's got this injury. I don't know. It's left me with a bad taste in my mouth. That's all it did for me. Um, they, I guess for whatever reason, I guess they decided not to do much with Ryback. They certainly could do more, this coming week, and I guess we'll wait and see what they do. Um, I guess we'll see what they do with everybody, and I'll cross my fingers that they actually do some things right, because it just, I don't, it seemed like they were doing some like serious drinking or something when they came up with some of this show. So with that in mind, that'll conclude this edition of TW Wrestling Talk. Thank you for tuning in as always, and just continue to tune in, please, and send me any feedback, any comments, anything you'd like me to discuss here on TW Wrestling Talk. I'd be glad to discuss it. So, thank you. Until next time.